Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to get started with today's training on how to do business, how to sell to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. In today's training, we're going to be talking about how to do business with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Actually, do me a favor in the chat. Just let me know you're showing up in today's training. Are you in HUD already and doing some business, got some customers? Or is HUD a target customer of yours, but you haven't got into them yet? So one of the things when you think about how to do business with HUD is to just understand sales. And I'm going to do this in every training that I do when I'm talking about how to do business with a department or an agency. One of the things is to back up and look at your sales activity, right? Blind responding to RFQs or RFPs, requests for proposals, that's not selling when you just see it on SAM or respond. That's reaction, right? And that's totally legitimate path to go down. Sometimes it makes sense to do it, but doing it consistently is not a good idea because it's not selling. You're not getting it in there and developing any kind of relationship or understanding of the customer. But when you do business development, which is what we're going to be talking about in today's training, you're putting a proactive approach to your success. You're actually doing selling into the agency. You're doing selling related to opportunities that you have in your pipeline. So business development, fundamentally, it comes down to three things is what I teach people, right? Business development is about understanding a target agency, understanding them sometimes better than they understand themselves. The second thing is building relationships. This is the key to success in sales in general and life in general, but in government contracting in particular, building relationships with strategic people that can help you move forward into HUD. And then the last thing is identifying opportunities within the organization. So when you do this research and when you do business development and you are proactive about trying to succeed in HUD, you're going to increase the likelihood of your success. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, after starting the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's a process. When you follow a process A to Z, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. If you're looking at my screen, you can see that I lay out a 7-step process for federal revenue success that I've put together. And the idea is the success that you're going to have in government contracting is a process that's broken into 2 phases. First phase is building relationships, right? So I have 3 steps that are the path to relationships: researching and understanding an agency, identifying people by targeting them, and then actually doing cold calls or outreach to start meeting new people. When you do that, you'll develop relationships, strategic relationships, and now you're on what I call the wheel of success, because you can identify opportunities that are right fits for your company. You can write much stronger and more winning proposals because you've taken the time to develop relationships and have conversations with the customer. Those winning proposals are going to lead to sales, of course. And when you have sales, you'll stay on that wheel of success. So as you move forward, always come back to this 7-step process. If you haven't taken a screenshot of this or something, definitely get this and put it on your wall, because this is how I measure my success and my team's success when we're helping our customers, is looking here and going, are we helping them with each aspect of their business? Let's get started with understanding the organizational structure. First thing I like to do is understand the organization, because when I understand the organization and I know what I sell, I can begin to say, is this office or this program office, are these the right fit for me? Sometimes you can see an org chart, it lays it out. HUD doesn't really have a good org chart, so I liked this organizational directory that they have, because I can just start scrolling down, right? And as I scroll down, I can begin to see particular areas. Like I'm going to come back in a little bit and talk about the HR shop or the human capital officer shop. But as I look through there, right, I can see some of this activity. If I'm doing personnel security, I'm like, okay, maybe this is the place I need to be. It's not some other office. And it's the same thing as you go down. So as you go down, you want to look at these offices and decide which ones are good fits for you. There's one other way of seeing their organization. And let me zoom out really quick, come to their about page. And inside of HUD, they've got, we'll come back to this in a second, but I was just looking for their current HUD programs. It's funny, I restarted my computer to make sure it would run faster, and apparently all my cache for the internet browsers delayed. We'll come back to this page in a second as it's loading. Let me move on to the next one. So when I'm looking at the organizational structure, I want to see the offices they have, the agencies, et cetera. Now, number two, I'm looking at what are their long-range goals and objectives, because as I want to get to know the agency, I can look at that. But also when I'm pursuing a particular opportunity, I align it back to their strategic plan. Okay, so the strategic plan, you can see HUD has a 2022 to 2026 plan. And when you come in here and look at this plan, it lays out their strategy for where they're trying to go. So what I want you to do is come in here and look at a strategic plan, right? When you look at HUD's strategic plan, you can begin to see certain things. So remember I said their org chart is not that spectacular. Here I can look at how their org chart is laid out, begin to see the priorities. One of the things I noticed right away, for example, is that there's an orange and green. When I look at a strategic plan, I can start trying to figure out why are they that way. When I look at a strategic plan, this is the part I was really trying to get you to, right? You want to look at these strategic goals that they have and understand where you begin to fit. For some of us, we're in the IT services. Maybe we're not really looking at reducing homelessness, or maybe we are, right? Maybe we're in the data analytics and AI side of the house. How can our skill set on that area come in and help them with their goals and their objectives of reducing homelessness right here on page 24? And when you think about how your solutions align to the agency, you begin to demonstrate that you care enough to have done your homework out there. One last thing on the strategic plan that you can see is you see how they've got a strategic framework and some of these other activities, priority goals. You want to go in and look at these because these are all things that tell you about what HUD's priorities are. So the next one I had here was the annual performance plan. If you look at the strategic plan, that's forward looking. The annual performance plan is looking out 1 year. So here they're looking out, how are we measuring and what are we measuring for FY 2024? It's similar to the strategic plan, but the strategic plan covers 4 years, basically a presidential administration kind of a window. But when you look in here at the annual performance plan, you can start seeing already what do they have lined up. But this is 260 pages of them telling you what they're going to be doing in the next year. If you really want to be working with HUD, then you want to come in here and start looking at, well, how are you going to be measuring this, right? What is the direction? So right here, you can look at this plan. The idea of the plan, I really like understanding what I'm describing visually. When you look at this, right? I talk about here's HUD's mission, and it aligns to the strategic goals that are in the strategic plan. And so they're tracking on a strategic goal. The strategic goals have objectives, and you can see these things explained further down as they're talking about what's going on. But then the strategic goals, and this is where the plan really begins to come in, have performance goal metrics and strategies. They have agency priorities. You can start looking at these and again go, how do we align what we sell to what HUD is trying to do? There's one other section here on this page. Hold on one second. So one of the other things I want you to pay attention to that they're looking at into the next year is these major management priorities and challenges. You want to look at these challenges that they have because this is them saying, we're facing this issue. And when you look through this, you start seeing them talk about the issues they're running into, how they think they're going to try to address it, or what they might need from industry. And so you want to be tracking on that as well. Okay, so as you're coming down, right? Number one is looking at the organizational structure. Number two is looking long-range strategic plan over multiple years. Number three, the annual performance plan is FY 2024. What are we doing? How are we going to address the strategic plan in the next year? Begin to execute on that. So number 4 and 5, I want to talk about the money side of HUD, right? You want to see, if you're trying to sell into HUD, you want to see where have they spent money before? Have they spent money in where you're at? So let me come back here. This is this tab here. Really quickly, just so you see the filter I do, and you can watch a whole separate training on how to use USA spending. But in here, I use 4 filters. Basically, I'm saying, show me last fiscal year, just the contracts. I don't want to see grants or anything else for HUD, and where the recipient type was small business. I can look and say, show me more, et cetera. But this is all I'm looking at the moment. One thing that is really interesting is to see that there was only 753 actions. That was super surprising to me. It's not the point of today's training, But when you compare that to HHS, which I did yesterday, it was thousands, right? So just coming in, you begin to see how they're spending. And I like coming in here. Sorry, let me zoom out really quick. I like coming in here and just getting a general idea. 300 million was going towards small business. Just so you know, on an annual basis, HUD generally spends about $1 billion in contracts, or through contracts. And so this is not unusual. It's 30% going to small, so that's good. One of the things I like doing is just looking at this quarterly and monthly view, right? Like right here is a really interesting thing. Why on earth in 2023 was there such a drop? But the thing I do like is that pretty much the equality of spending throughout the whole year. And then let's do the same thing in the months. Really something weird happened here, and I don't care about weirdness in there, but I can look here, and it's interesting to see across the board. The good news is HUD spends pretty consistently. It looks like in October, they don't do a lot. They take a breather after the last fiscal year, and then they slowly come up, but then they start moving forward. I mean, when you look at, January, an obvious time in 2024, probably slow down, but then it starts picking up again. And then you have obvious spending at the end. The other thing I want to show you is just the categories. When you look at the categories, you see where they're spending money. Let me click on that again. So inside of HUD, they might not even do it too well, but here you can just see this is HUD spending money. And because I'm doing it with HUD being the funding agency and who's got it, but basically it's all HUD. The part I wanted to show you though was this. You can go in and look where are they spending on NAICS codes and PCS. And so if I look at NAICS codes for small businesses, the top 4 I can see are in the professional services arena, right? And then it begins to drop down like facility support services, 20 million. So there's not a huge spend in there. If I was in facility support, I might not go into HUD, right? I might go somewhere else. But if I was on the computer side, I can see they've got a decent spend that's out there. And then if you're trying to get into HUD, one of the other things you can do in USA Spending is you can go in and begin to see who are these small business recipients of the contracts that are out there so that you can maybe pursue them for teaming partnerships. I was just talking to a large company this morning, and we were talking about how a great strategy for largers to get into agencies themselves is to team up with a small who's already in. And so they might do this exact same path. Okay, so that was where they spent, right? Now 5 and 7, I'm going to be looking at where will they spend. So if we just looked at where they spent last year, here you can look at the budget and you can begin to say, where are they going to spend money? Where's that $1 billion in contracts potentially going to be spent? And so you can start coming through here. I haven't done this already, but if I just searched cyber as an example, right, I can begin to identify in goal 5 that they've got a desire to strengthen HUD's capacity and efficiency to make sure that they can execute, right? And so down here, I'm looking at them wanting to protect against cybersecurity threats. And you can do the same kind of thing. You can come in, look at this one. So here I can see right away that they've got a $400 million spend for IT. It's modernization, it's cybersecurity. I would want to dig into that. And because I'm looking at this budget, let me just come back up to the top. Because I'm looking at HUD's budget, I get a pretty good idea. And keep in mind, this is only the budget brief. You can go look at a much more thorough document that is hundreds of pages long. And if you're trying to sell into HUD, and if you're trying to make a few $1 million a year or a lot more, then spending a few hours digging into their budget and understanding where that money is planned to be spent next year, you can understand where you can fit. You can also see, oh, hey, we spent too much in cybersecurity last year. This year, we're not going to spend anything. You're like, all right, let me get out of here. There's no point in me staying. That's not going to happen, right? But it is going to happen on other areas. Like they might sit there and say, we were going to build this building, but now we're not. We're going to put it off for 5 years because of whatever. You can begin to learn that kind of detail inside of HUD. Inside the budget document. Okay, so number 6, we're down to number 6 here, just tracking my time. One of the things you want to be paying attention to is if the government shuts down, we want to know, if we've got contracts in there, will they keep spending, right? So we look at their contingency plan. It tells us what happens if the government shuts down, what happens if there's a continuing resolution. If you don't know this, the government still hasn't passed a budget. They're probably not going to for a while. This is bad and good. Kind of the good part, just to leave you with the good part, is a lot of times, no matter what they argue about in Congress, they end up just creating the same budget again, unless there's a massive slash of spending, which I don't anticipate even coming close to happening. What happens is a lot of the money they're asking for gets pushed farther and farther into the fiscal year. Keep in mind, we're almost through the first quarter. And so that spending has been at a steady state in this quarter, and there might be more end of the year activity. So if you're going into HUD, understanding the contingency plan will help you now, but it'll also help you as you look at the budget and go, well, is there a chance of more increased spending at the end of the year? So just take a minute and go through here. You can see as they break it down, each office that you can decide, you can look at them. And if you're supporting, Ginnie Mae, or like down here, Ginnie Mae on 21, you can go down and see what their individual plan is for that organization within HUD. Okay, so number 7 is tying together with number 5. So number 5 is the dollars, the budget that they're asking for. We want $10 billion or whatever it is. Number 7 is talking about opportunities where HUD is thinking they could have opportunities dropping. I actually should have opened this one now that I think about it, but let me just see if it opens up quick. So inside their budget, their long range forecast, you can come in here and begin to look for opportunities, right? Most of us should be already familiar with long range acquisition forecasts. This should be something for every target agency you look at, that you know how frequently it's updated. If you go to DHS as an example, I think it's updated on a regular basis. Other agencies update it once a year because they have to, right? But make sure you understand it. So here I'm looking at continued support for internet and Wi-Fi for HUD. Okay, is that a contract that we might be able to win? It's 200 to 5. It's 200,000 to 5,000 or 500,000. This is amazing, right? It's saying that it's full and open, which is kind of crazy, because if it's support and if it's not the actual wires coming in, then that should be for small business. But you can look in here, and when you look into HUD's forecast, you can identify opportunities you'd like to start pushing to small, or see if they can go to your vehicle, or look at the NAICS code and see if you can bring it down. That's all capture activity, and it begins with looking at the long range acquisition forecast. Okay, there is no supplier portal. Usually agencies have their own supplier portal, and you want to register in there. Yesterday I was teaching about HHS. They do. HUD does not. So just make sure your dynamic small business search profile in SAM and DSBS are updated. You can do that in connect.sba.gov. Somebody can put that into the chat. Connect.sba.gov. And really quick, just as a pause, I don't know if you're getting here late, because I noticed there's a lot more people on than when we started. If you're in HUD already, or if you want to be in HUD, let me know. Either one. I'm in HUD already, or I want to be in HUD. Okay, number 9. We've got 9 and 10 here, and this is the fun part for me, because the big part of what we do for our customers is get them in the door, get them having meetings. When you have meetings with the program office and the contracting officers, you're able to really begin to influence the opportunities in your company's favor. Guaranteed, if you can't have a conversation, you can't influence it anyway. So let's look at the first one is key points of contact here. This one here are the small business specialists. And so these are focuses of receptivity. Come on, internet, load. I'm learning my lesson for tomorrow. So here, these are small business points of contact, and these are great, right? They all got, for the most part, they've got phone numbers, emails, and names. So you can start coming down. You got some people who are in charge of what I would call mini HCAs, or head of contracting activities, at the different areas or field offices, right? But these are great people to reach out to and begin to start having conversations with, to see if you can get some traction. There's another group that I like here. And so this one here, and I just wanted to show you, is you can dig farther in. So I went to the small business page, the OSDBU page, which I don't even think I actually tell you about, but basically it's right here. There you go. So they've got a good page here, and they really work to communicate with industry. They do a great job on that. But this page, I can go in and I can learn about those small business point of contacts. But I want you to keep in mind, you can find program office people and other people like that you want to get in and talk to just by really digging deep, researching into a website. So here's an example. I talked about this earlier in the training. If I want to go to the HR department, the Chief Human Capital Officer, I can come in here, and on this page, I want to look at the About Office of Human Capital Officer. Clearly, I've walked this path before. And in here, I can see some points of contact. And when I come in, right, this is the HR department. I've got customers who do deaf communication access. They do administrative support, program management type support, this might be a good point of contact for them or set of point contacts. But when you come in here and you start seeing this, there's a good list of people in here. And that's pretty awesome. I'm going to come back to this list in a minute. But if I just begin to look at any of these, let's say you're good with recruiting and you want to be doing some advertising for HUD as it relates to reaching candidates to recruit, right? Maybe Christina Peterson is somebody you should be reaching out to. We'll come back to her in 1 second. But dig into the site in HUD and you'll find a lot of contacts. Another way to find contacts who are at HUD, if you don't know people, is to begin to browse on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is phenomenal. A lot of people in the federal government are moving over in this direction. I've been here since 2007, so I welcome them showing up. But you can see that they've got a ton of people, right? So they're 10,000 plus employees, but on here are about 6,000, I think. Yeah, so about 6,300 HUD employees are on here. And so when I come in here, I can start finding some of these people. Here's a contracting representative. Well, that's lowercase, so it's a little harder. But I can look here at Financial Management Center as a division director. I can take this person, or I can take Christina as an example. Let me copy her name. I can take these people from LinkedIn as I discover them and come over here to my final thing I want to show you about HUD is a bonus point of contact list. And this is their entire phone directory for the employees. And so if I just come up to the top, it says last name up there. So I'm just going to type it in and hit enter. And here's Christina Peterson, right? And so there's Christina Peterson. Over here, I didn't have an email for her. But now over here, I do. If you look at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, it pops up. This is her email address. So for everybody out there, I have, using that bonus, their phone numbers, their emails, the office they're in. So when you begin to really research into HUD, you can get traction in there. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. The first thing is buyers don't care about what you know until they know that you care. Buyers don't care what you know until they know that you care. And caring begins when you do your homework, when you take the time to do research. The first step of my 7-step process, right? When you research and you begin to understand their goals, you understand that they have an annual report and you're looking at that annual report and you're able to talk to that. They know that you've done your homework and now they know that you care. And so now they care, right? And so that's really important one to remember. And the third one is just keep in mind that success requires you to build relationships with teammates, with people at HUD in the acquisition shop, in the small business shop, in the program office. Start building those strategic relationships by following some of the tips I gave you on the previous slide. Those 10 links, begin to get in there, learn about them, talk to them, reach out and try to build your relationship within HUD. If you're interested in working with me and my team on helping you accelerate into HUD or into any federal agency, we'd love to talk to you about what we do to help our customers. You can go to govconchamber.com. We tend to work with customers who are $1 million plus because it is an investment. So I want to make sure you're already doing doing some business so that you can afford it. But if you're ready, come on in there. If you value what we're doing today in the training and you value the training we provide, do me a favor, throw a thanks into the chat for me and for my colleagues who are doing this. All of us, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is doing all that research, and I hope you do. I hope you find this valuable. I will see you in the next training.